I'll tell you what my first impressions were. Quite charming. Half-timbered houses, window boxes with petunias and bright geraniums blooming on every sill. Little girls with ribbons in their hair, little boys with aprons stitched in bright colors. If there was poverty, I confess I didn't see it. It was heaven. And everywhere you went, music.
Nora Wall, an American, lived in Hitler's Germany from 1934 to 1938. For most Germans, these were good years, a time of growing prosperity. Hitler's Nazis had promised national revival, and they boasted enormous popular support.
I was to stay in Bad Godesberg in Western Germany. The day that I arrived, the Führer himself was in town, Adolf Hitler. There were swastika flags hanging out of every window, crowds 3, 4, 5 thick lining the roads, and this bubbling enthusiasm. It was contagious. One woman turned to me, a perfect stranger, and said, "He is my mother and my father. He keeps me safe from all harm."
Germany in these years was gripped in a cult of the Führer, the leader. The Nazis urged Germans to put their differences aside, to rally behind Hitler, trusting in the glorious future of their country and the fact that Hitler could do no wrong.
It was terribly exciting, like a festival. And the welcome that I got was warm, embracing. I don't know what I was expecting, quite, but certainly not such generosity. I was to stay in lodgings used by a professor I knew, a professor of music. And the couple who owned the place were young and enthusiastic, typical, it seemed to me, of this new Germany. Yes, lovely house.
Oh, thank you. Come through. The town's full. It's the best tourist season we've had in years. It's all you foreigners. Curious to see if us Germans are as bad as they say, huh?
You have got a room for me, though.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. We got your letter.
Hello, I'm Frau Trutz. You must call me Ursula. And you've met my husband, Eric. Professor, Frau Wahn is here.
It's not the biggest of rooms, I'm afraid.
Oh, I don't need much.
But you can see right across the square.
Hello, Frau Wahn.
And tonight, there is going to be a festival for the Führer. There'll be singing and dancing. And you will have a splendid view.
You're too kind.
No, never too kind. We want you to enjoy your stay.
Nora's description of life in Germany, published in 1939, is full of everyday accounts of love for the Führer. She found people endlessly keen to explain how grateful they felt.
It's like Germany is a ship that was broken on the rocks. And by gift of God in Hitler, we have a leader who can repair and steer that ship. Eric?
Do you worship him?
Worship is too much.
Well, some people do. I heard the other day at Berchtesgaden, outside Hitler's house, these old women actually ate the gravel where he'd stood.
It's like they're under a spell.
Yes, but you don't know what it was like before Hitler. We have every reason to be thankful.
Before Hitler, Germany had been deep in economic depression. Before Hitler, unemployment had stood at 7 million. Before Hitler, Germany was a democracy, but too many parties had split the vote, so governments were weak and unable to solve the crisis. Hitler offered dictatorship, all power in the hands of one man. And Germany was quick to accept Hitler's terms.
Unemployment's absurd. People say we are civilized, and yet millions of people are out of work. What is that? That's sick. No one should be denied the right to work. And neither should anyone who can work be allowed to be lazy.
Work and bread. These are the Führer's blessings.
Putting Germany back to work was Hitler's first and most pressing problem. But because he was all-powerful, he had the clout to carry out large-scale work programs, like building autobahns, motorways to link the nation together. By 1935, unemployment had fallen to just 2 million. By 1939, it was gone.
My landlord, Eric, worked for the German Labor Front. He had business all around Germany, and once I went with him to see what they had achieved. And it was remarkable. We saw labor camps, not for wage earners, but for young people, 18, 19 years old, to teach them the value of work, to get their hands hardened. You saw them marching along with their spades like guns, or singing as they dug ditches, reclaimed land. If you spoke to them, sometimes you felt they resented being there, but not often. There was, I think, a pleasure involved. Eric would say,
"You must understand, work shouldn't be just earning a wage and going home. That's drudgery. We believe there's a beauty in labor. You do a job well, and it gives you happiness."
it was like the Nazis were shaking people into feeling good about what they did. You had to work. You had no choice. You were organized. You were there for the state to use, and they would milk you for your labor, no question. But then, at the end of the day, they said, "Now, see what we have achieved." And it was pretty impressive.
The work program was vast and triumphal. Hitler had promised a Germany reborn. He said he was building for a state to last for 1,000 years. He'd rebuild Berlin on a magnificent scale. There'd be an assembly hall in every city, a swimming bath in every village, a house and garden and car for every worker. Much of this was pure fantasy, but enough was achieved to pump German pride.
Confidence. That's what it was. Everywhere. And a great sense of Germanness. National costumes, parades, music. And even if you found it all a bit funny, there was so much good. You could leave your door unlocked. You could leave your washing on the line without it being stolen. No one dropped litter. Young people offered you their seats on the trams. And yet, I didn't believe it. Not 100%. Or at least I questioned it. In America, I had heard so much bad of Nazi Germany. Violence, brutality. I wondered if I was seeing, if I was being allowed to see, the whole picture.
Tens of thousands of books were cast into the flames, around which Hitler's brown-shirted Nazis stood with fixed bayonets.
Newsreels like this fueled the image many foreigners held of the Nazis' rise to power.
No such act of barbaric vandalism had been recorded in modern history. As the leaping flames of the Nazi bonfires illumined the night, the crowd about danced and hurrahed in an ecstasy of mad emotion, while stories of wanton beatings and bullyings in the darkened streets added to the terror.
Such pictures were seen around the world. Hardly surprising Nora was suspicious.
It's all you foreigners. Curious to see if we Germans are as bad as they say, huh?
The truth, Nora had to find out for herself.
Early in my stay, I was reading the German papers. Problems all over the world. Unrest in France, misery in Russia, a shipping strike back home in California. In Germany, everything's rosy. A small squabble in the Nazi party, but it only gets 1 or 2 paragraphs. And then I picked up the British paper. As an American, I was still allowed foreign news. And lo and behold, Germany's the headline.
Hitler crushes brown shirt revolt. No pity for Hitler's friends. Shot, he says, for treason. Hitler's chief of staff executed.
It was the night of the Long Knives, June 30th, 1934. Hitler had butchered 400 top brown shirts, the very men who helped him grab power in the first place. Just a mockery of lawful government, and the German papers so carefully censored.
Feuer!